Human biases are mental shortcuts and assumptions that we make when processing information and making decisions. They are a natural part of the human experience and are shaped by our childhood, experiences, and cultural and societal influences. Bias can manifest in many different ways and can influence the way we perceive and interpret information, the decisions we make, and the actions we take. Let's ask the AI what it has to say about biases in humans and how it affects our decision-making process. Bias can have significant consequences, both for individuals and for society as a whole. At the individual level, bias can lead us to make decisions that are not in our own best interests, or to miss out on opportunities or experiences that could be beneficial to us. Bias can also lead to conflicts and misunderstandings with others, as our biases can influence the way we perceive and interpret their words and actions. At the societal level, bias can lead to discrimination and inequality, as certain groups may be unfairly favored or disadvantaged based on biases that are held by individuals or institutions. This can have far-reaching consequences, as it can lead to a lack of equal access to education, employment, and other opportunities, which can have a negative impact on the overall well-being and prosperity of society. One way that bias can manifest is through cognitive biases, which are mental shortcuts and assumptions that we make when processing information and making decisions. These biases can lead us to make judgments that are based on incomplete or flawed information, or to favor certain information over other information. Examples of cognitive biases include the confirmation bias, the overconfidence bias, the anchoring bias, and the availability heuristic. Confirmation bias is the tendency to search for, interpret, favor, and remember information that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs or hypotheses. This can lead to a narrow-minded and biased perspective. The overconfidence bias is a common cognitive bias that occurs when an individual is too confident in their own abilities, judgments, or beliefs. This can lead to a range of negative outcomes, including making poor decisions, engaging in risky behaviors, and failing to consider alternative viewpoints. The anchoring bias is the tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information encountered when making decisions and to underestimate the influence of subsequent information. This can lead to suboptimal decisions. The availability heuristic is the tendency to overestimate the likelihood of an event based on how easily examples of it come to mind. This can lead to irrational judgments and decisions. These are all examples of cognitive biases, which are mental shortcuts that can lead to systematic deviations from norm or rationality in judgment and decision-making. Another way that bias can manifest is through social biases, which are attitudes and behaviors that are shaped by our societal and cultural influences. These biases can be conscious or unconscious, and they can lead us to favor or discriminate against certain groups of people based on factors such as race, religion, gender, age, and sexual orientation. The media can also manipulate the masses by presenting biased information in a number of ways, including selective reporting. This involves only presenting certain aspects of a story or issue, while leaving out others that may provide a more balanced or nuanced view. This can be done intentionally or unintentionally. Spin. This involves presenting information in a way that promotes a particular perspective or agenda. This can involve using language and framing techniques to manipulate the way in which a story is perceived. Confirmation bias. This occurs when the media only presents information that confirms pre-existing beliefs or biases. This can lead to a narrow view of an issue and a lack of critical thinking. Echo chambers. This occurs when people are only exposed to information that aligns with their own views and beliefs, leading to a lack of exposure to alternative perspectives. This can be exacerbated by the use of social media algorithms that show users content that aligns with their beliefs. The media can manipulate people in the sense that it can shape their beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors through the selective presentation of information. By presenting biased or incomplete information, the media can influence the way in which people perceive and understand issues. This can be especially powerful when people are not aware that they are being influenced, as it can lead to the adoption of beliefs and attitudes without critical examination. Bias can also be influenced by our emotions and past experiences. For example, The emotional state that we are in can shape the way we perceive and interpret information, and we are more likely to make biased decisions when we are feeling stressed, anxious, or overwhelmed. Our past experiences can also influence our biases, as we are more likely to remember and give greater weight to information that has had a strong emotional impact on us. The influence of bias on our decision-making can have significant consequences, both for ourselves and for others. In some cases, biased decisions can lead to negative outcomes, such as financial loss, conflict with others, or even death. For example, biased decisions by law enforcement, prosecutors, and judges can result in the wrongful conviction and incarceration of individuals, sometimes leading to death in cases where the individual is sentenced to the death penalty. Additionally, biased decisions by law enforcement regarding the use of force can result in the death of individuals, particularly those from marginalized communities who may be more likely to be subjected to excessive or deadly force due to biases and prejudices held by the officers involved. The same thing can happen in the healthcare system when healthcare providers hold biases or prejudices against certain groups of people, leading them to provide unequal or lower quality care. It is important to recognize that bias is a natural part of the human experience and that it can influence our decisions and actions in ways that we may not be aware of. However, it is also important to strive to be aware of our biases and to try to minimize their influence on our decision-making. This can involve seeking out diverse perspectives, being open to new information, and being mindful of our emotional state when making decisions. By doing so, we can work to reduce the impact of bias on our decisions and actions and make more informed and objective choices. Another way to minimize the influence of bias is to be mindful of our emotional state when making decisions. Our emotions can have a strong influence on our decision-making, and by taking time to calm our emotions and to consider all of the relevant information, we can help to reduce the influence of bias on our decisions. It can also be helpful to enlist the help of others when making important decisions. By seeking the perspective of others who may have different biases or viewpoints, we can broaden our understanding of the situation and help to reduce the influence of our own biases. This can be especially useful in situations where the stakes are high or where the consequences of a biased decision could be severe. It is unlikely that anyone can completely eliminate all biases from their decision-making. Bias is a natural part of the human experience and is shaped by a wide range of factors, including our childhood, experiences, cultural and societal influences, and emotions. These influences are deeply ingrained and can be difficult to fully overcome. It is also important to recognize that bias is not always negative, and it can sometimes serve a useful function. For example, we rely on our biases and mental shortcuts to help us make decisions quickly and efficiently in situations where we don't have time to carefully consider all of the available information. However, when our biases lead us to make decisions that are not based on all of the relevant information or that are harmful to ourselves or others, it is important to try to minimize their influence. What do you think about human biases? Looking in hindsight, do you have an example of where your bias was in charge of your decision? Tell us about it in the comment section below. And if you like this content, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.